Okay, so want to introduce our one of our other guests, who's Jesse Ireland. He's the K-12 Teaching and Learning Coordinator, right?
Yeah, I switched roles. Learning Technology Specialist is my current role.
Okay, say that again. The learning what?
Learning Technology Specialist.
Ah, that's a new one for me. Columbus City Public Schools, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So good to have you. And then we'll have Kimberly also rejoin. And why don't we start first, Jesse? Just give us a little update. What's new? What changed for you? What's happening over there?
Well, right now we're working on Canvas is our learning management system we have for the districts. And so right now we're working with teams of teachers to help build out blueprint courses for next year when Canvas goes fully live for all students and teachers. We have a small group of teachers and students who are piloting courses for us right now to get feedback and to improve the blueprints. But the blueprints are going to be kind of mapped out to all the core content teachers courses next year. So they have a starting place. They're not starting from scratch to kind of alleviate some of that hardship they might have of creating an online course or face-to-face course from scratch. And so we're working on that. We're also working on Master Connect is our assessment management system that goes with Canvas. So we're working on building summative assessments that go in these courses as well, so that teachers have access to these sample assessments they can use throughout the course and what they can do with those. So that's kind of our two big projects we're working on.
That's awesome. So in other words, the district is sort of moved beyond like, here's the pacing guides, have at it. You're on your own, build everything in Google Docs or Microsoft, and you guys are loading up the big dog repository of LMS, and you're actually populating some of it too.
Yes, right. Yeah, currently a lot of teachers use Google Classroom. So it's kind of really up to them to how they customize it, because it's not a system-wide kind of learning management system. It's kind of an individualized learning hub. So that's kind of one of the main reasons we transitioned to Canvas. So we provide a more standardized way of teaching and learning that not only houses teaching instructional resources, but also powerful learning experiences for students. So kind of one-stop shop for teachers and students to access learning materials and resources.
Yeah, this is really positive. Oh, and Kimberly, you're also doing this too, right? So what I want to lead this panel to really talk about is logistics. Okay, so both of you, with what you just said, Jesse, and what Kimberly talked about earlier, are neck deep in logistics, bringing order to the manifestation of operations in the digital sphere, right? Because when everybody sort of launched off the deep end into the deep end of digital, they kind of were letting like everybody go do. Here's a machine, now do forth everything, right? And people were like, some of them didn't do it at all, and then all the rest of them were like, I got like 16 things, and I'm in Google. Are you in Microsoft? It's like it was all like a trend, whatever my trend was of the day. People were like Wild Westing it, right? So now you're bringing order, and that's a real journey. So let's talk about that journey first, and then I want to kind of level up your thinking of what's next and see what you say. Okay. So Kimberly, I'm going to come back to you. So I'll give Jesse a little second to think about that. The journey of that administratively. Talk to me about that.
Well, yes, we were lucky. I said before that we had our learning management system for several years before we got thrown to the wild west. So when we rolled ours out initially, we did not have a structure in place. We did not have this is how we want you to do this. I kind of wish we had, but then I'm kind of okay that we didn't, because everybody tends to organize things in different ways that work best for them, how their brains, work. So I know districts that have done that have said, okay, this is what it's going to look like for everyone. And I would say that we have gotten there a little bit naturally as we've gone along, because for parents, I think that our teachers are starting to understand that because we're using it K through 12, our parents and our students, it's really helpful for them if they know where to look for things, how to look for things. And we also use ours, for a lot of communication, like I heard our last speaker talk about. So we have buildings. Every building has a building page in our LMS, and we post information out there. The district has a page. So, we're using it for communication and for coursework. But that being said, so I would say that our teachers have gotten more structured kind of on their own. They all started doing things kind of together in teams and then sharing. You know, I've got mine set up like this. I've got mine set up like that. They started using Bitmoji classrooms, which are kind of a cool, new thing that kind of came out. And my goodness, there are even Facebook groups dedicated to how to create these things. People have built templates and shared them. So some of our teachers ended up kind of going down that rabbit hole and using those, but they love them now. They use them all the time now, and we've seen them grow kind of exponentially. So I don't think you can go wrong either way. I think having that organization in place is good because it helps everybody know where to look for things. But and then I think we are moving more toward now we are looking at common assessments. Mm-hmm. So where we did have everybody kind of doing things on their own and they were grouping up in teams and doing things together, we're becoming more structured now with assessments. So we are using Performance Matters and we are using the analytics side of it right now. And now that Power School ended up buying everything that we bought. So
yeah, they did. They're kind of eating up everybody, right? Yeah, I know. That's what they do.
It was kind of funny because we would go out and buy something and then they would buy it. And actually it's good now because it's so interoperable that it is really starting to give us like some of the things that we've always been wanting. But we are going to start using Schoology to create common assessments, and then those assessments will go over into analytics. So we're able to use our data even more efficiently than we were before. So I think we're going to kind of go through that structuring system when we start to create these common assessments together, because they will have to be very, very structured in order to have the data match up effectively.
Okay. Okay. I see the vision.
Yeah.
You've understated the amount of work that is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of chatting that's going on, but all the people, there's meetings occurring, there's stuff's getting stuck in the calendar. And it's like a never ending, because the hardest part is the humans, right? Is that just true? Okay.
Yeah. Well, those teams having time cut out to work together. I mean, yes, that is, it's great. It's great that they all have the ability to work together and create and share, but it's the time, and it's how do we structure to give them more time. That's, I think, the other thing that has been born out of this is, and I think I mentioned it before, is that we are collaborating more than we ever have before, because we have the systems in order to share, to do the work. And we are finding that we can be more structured and be better in the classroom as far as personalizing the learning by that planning time. So
yeah, I love that you said it that way. Number of different issues that I want to bring up with that, but I'm going to go back to Jesse first. So Jesse, let's talk about your journey, because this is you're probably having people are having meetings over there and things are happening. Yeah.
So we're working with 150 teachers right now to co-build these courses. So it's really a kind of homegrown approach. We could have easily done it ourselves as a department. We really wanted it to be a collaborative effort. And so we boarded teachers instead of time to work on these courses. So each team of teachers is working on a blueprint course and building out the assessments and sample learning experiences within the course. And then the teachers who, eventually get the course are able to customize it based on the, student needs they have in front of them. But we had a project plan. We have check-ins with them. Like each of us on our department has a monthly check-in with the teams to make sure they're kind of on the same line and make sure on point, give them feedback and review. And then we work with our curriculum team. So we're the Office of Learning Technology. We have our curriculum and teaching and learning team, who then goes in and also gives feedback on these courses, particularly the assessments, to make sure they're aligned to the standards. And so they're invited to these check-in meetings. And then we have these workshops we offer on Saturdays that people can come in and kind of do face-to-face building with us. We do that once a month. And then we have a lot of different other projects we do, not just like this piece. So we have a project management system called Basecamp. And so we use Basecamp to kind of keep track of all our projects. It's really helpful because you can assign to-do items, you can assign tasks, and you can identify teams and projects, and everybody can see what's going on. And it's a great way to kind of give, provide evidence for what's happening, but at the same time to manage all the work and all the teams that are happening. Because while this is going on, we're building up our online courses for teachers to do for PD. Like we're building the self-paced kind of asynchronous courses that people can take for like how to learn Canvas, how to learn Match Connects, because we're planning on doing a lot of stuff in the summer for PD, and that's going to be part of it. So we have lots of different things going on, and so we use Basecamp to kind of help manage all these different projects and to kind of make sure tasks are being completed on timelines. And with the course completion, we have this blueprint tracker, which essentially each course had to have certain components in it. Like you got to have a homepage, you got to have X, Y, and Z. You got to have some assessment for every unit. You got to have at least 2 learning experiences. So just these components you got to have for every course. And so that's all kept on a big spreadsheet. And so that each of us keeps that up to date. So we make sure as these courses are being built, they're kind of meeting the criteria that we have set. One of the things that we want to work on as we go into next year is like our learning technology department was brand new this year as a district. And so we were kind of building the plan as we refine it kind of thing. So next year we want to move towards more clear defining, like a kind of create a process flow chart. Okay, when we're building courses, we need to do it and with a deep collaboration with teaching and learning. So what's that look like more clearly? It's like who's the process owners for each component of these course build out. Right now we're kind of doing it intermixed, but more clearly defining, okay, this part of the course lies the process owners who, like what department is owning that part of the work, or is it collaboration? But there are going to be some components that learning technology help with, like we get the final say in the course whether it goes out. But the assessment bit, like our team isn't going to go in there and see if the assessments are aligned with standards. That's the work of curriculum. So there's different pieces of the course that would lie with different departments. So kind of bringing those departments together to make sure that each component is like verified and checks off the mark in terms of the quality that we want to go out. So that's been working itself, just kind of collaborating with other departments to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we're all working towards the same goal.
So question then for you. So when you define a course, is it defined by time, not just subject?
Well,
so like when you say 6th grade math, it's like semester and another course for the next semester.
Yeah, so we use Infinite Campus for our student management, information management system. So in there, our courses high school courses are semesterized. So every course is, even though it's a full year course, is broken into semesters. Middle school and elementary courses are that way. It's a full year course. And so like, whatever course they're working on, I'll just say Algebra 1, for example, the teachers, the first thing they do, they backward map it. And so they design the assessment first. So what's the mastery we want students to get out of this course, and then backward map it. And so design the learning experiences based on that, that assessment that students are going to have to take at the end of the course or end of the semester, what have you, end of the unit. And so we've kind of backward map all these courses.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, it's anchored by time and space. It's like this course is supposed to take one block, 45-minute Carnegie unit or whatever, daily across this amount of time. Now go, right? So the build is anchored by time and space mostly.
I mean, we're not building like full-blown courses. Like, I mean, we're building some foundational content in the course, but the teachers are going to be, up to the teacher. It's still going to have to be up. They customize it, so it's not going to be.
You're
like
playlisting it. You're doing the mixology, some of it, but then
we're providing a district level foundational content, like our district level resources. We're saying like this is the foundational content we want in all these courses from a district point of view, and then that's what's in the course.
So assessment, resource playlist, tag to standards. Is there a framework of ideologically the instructions of what should go into each lesson, and then the teacher builds the lesson? I think we lost.
Yeah, we have some templates. Oh, sorry. Yeah, am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So we have some templates in there that we can use for various activities, and like, for example, assignments you can build on Canvas and so forth. We have some templates in the exemplars, but the
Okay.
teachers still have the freedom to choose, okay, how they want to build their individual assignments once they get the course.
Okay, I got it. I think I'm getting it now. Okay, so I want to take, this is awesome. It's awesome to know how you're doing this, but really what both of you have been doing is bringing order, bringing a logistics underlayment to the operational continuity of your districts. So now I want to take you in another direction and just see how you react to this. And I'm going to put this back up on the screen. I went over it earlier. And this you might remember, Jesse, I don't know if you remember if we did this when we were out there last, but this came from a concept of how could you 100% personalize for the student? And everyone's on their own pace, which means they might be 2 grades ahead in language and 1 grade behind in math and on grade for other subjects. Okay, so this is a wild definition of personalization for most public education. But it's what we're seeing happen and has been happening for a really long time in private schools. And it's actually the new definition since the pandemic of what parents actually are doing when they're going to the consumer grade markets and buying learning objects or full courses or quitting and going to homeschool. They want 100%. They want the true definition of personalized for me. If my kid's behind in English, I'm going to double up the amount of time they do in that and take math away from them for a while, for example. So this is a playboard that we had done before the pandemic about how you might restructure space and time. And one of the things that happens if you think about a model like this is that it's not really teacher-centric anymore. It's student-centric, their pace. So now you guys have been talking about laying down the pathways, like you've structured or at least frameworked courses. So imagine, if you will, you've laid down the full railroad tracks. Kimberly, you and I talked about this earlier. And now kids could pace independently, you can restructure. What are your thoughts about this? Because this allows teachers to roam. They're not tethered to a classroom all the time. They only go into the classroom when a cohort of kids hits the moment of togetherness. So it makes your teachers define togetherness. It's an exact lecture. It's only 30 minutes. Or it's a hands-on project required, like just you have requirements, where they do something together as a physical togetherness, where I actually have a lab experiment or something like that, right? So the moments of togetherness are purposeful, and they're cohorted, right? So different cohorts, same age, are arriving at different times in the course of the year. This is a complete flip administratively in the thinking of this market. People can't usually get there easily. And so they start thinking about doing this maybe for part of their study day. So Kimberly, what are your thoughts about this? Because I believe it or not, I think you're evolving to this eventually. And this is sort of what our research is showing is like the pinnacle of where transformation is going so that it can meet the market. You quit losing kids, you can more efficiently use teachers. It's using high value user interface, user experience for the student themselves. It's student centric. What are your thoughts on all this? Is it like too scary to even think about, or what do you think?
Not for me. I love it. I have so many thoughts. I hope I can organize them succinctly. But so I'll start with my youngest daughter has some pretty major health issues, and she has not been able to be a traditional in the classroom student. And when this all happened initially, like she was on track, AP and all that stuff, all that jazz. All 3 of my kids are gifted, so I also see from the gifted lens, the boredom from a traditional classroom. Mm-hmm. But with Leah, she had to switch to, she couldn't come to school. She had a variety of issues. One of them was chronic migraines. So she had a hard time being in school. So they put her in our digital academy. Well, okay, that's fine. And that offers, a way to move through content, but it is the absolute opposite of what we want in education, because it is sitting through a 15-minute lecture on a video to then stop and take a 10-question, DOK level 1 assessment and then move on to the next segment of video and the next 10 question quiz, and then culminating in a larger test, right?
Yeah.
And I watch it happen and I'm like, oh, I mean, because it's just absolutely what we don't want to happen. And I've watched her just let the video run on silent and then just take the questions, because she can't stand sitting through listening to what's happening. So, while
Kimberly, hold on a second. So we say it's absolutely what we don't want to happen. Is it because of the lack of human reality? Like you're missing all the cues, your attention's not really taken because you're short form thinker. You've been raised in the digital age, and if it's longer than a text, if it's a whole email or a whole phone call, it's alien ground. Like, what are your whys on that?
Okay, so I think my biggest problem is that, again, it goes back to that depth of knowledge conversation, right? Okay. So it is that sit and get. So if that were happening in the classroom, that would be a teacher in front of the room lecturing for 40 minutes and then giving a multiple choice, true, false, quiz.
Yeah.
And that's the only, and I'm not saying that is bad and doesn't maybe have its place occasionally, but right, you're always at this very low level interaction with learning. Like you're not going deeper. And so I think that is the problem I have that with that model, because that's all they're getting for an entire semester or an entire year or whatever. So they're never challenged, you know what I mean, to compare and contrast, or, you know what I mean? Like they don't do partner work. They don't, there's nothing that takes them deeper with the learning.
That's the argument. It's like you're the online kid, you're the strange kid over there who doesn't get socialized, or you're the fully on campus kid, and there's no in between.
Right.
And what I'm talking about here is the in between.
Right. And that's why, like, when I look at this kind of model, I think it's so much better in the sense that you do have interaction, because really there's no question either. Like I can't raise my hand to that video and ask a question or try to go deeper. I don't have the ability to have that human interaction. I only have that video giving to me. Yeah. Right. And so in this type of situation, now what's good about it is the ability to move through the content at a pace. So, now you're stuck because you have to complete the video in order to give, to answer the questions in that first scenario. But you are able to move through. If you can get it all done in 2 days, you get it all done in 2 days. You know what I mean? So I do like the fact that you can set your own pace. But, with something like this, I'll tell you an example too. We were talking about pace and path here a few years ago in our district, and somebody, we've started letting our kids grow in math. So they can, if they master, they can move on. So we have a massive acceleration that we started with math. Now we've gone in some other realms as well. But I remember like a third grade teacher saying, what if they get through my stuff? What is the fourth grade teacher going to do? Right? Because we're so compartmentalized with how we think about kids progressing through learning. And so that is a mind shift. So all of this that you're putting out, here is a mind shift. And it's going to be difficult that's the way we've always done it. Conversations. It's even going to be difficult for parents because that's the way they did it. Kind of the compartmentalized approach. But truly for learning, this is a great approach because they can move through, they can go deeper, they can work with other people. They're not locked into those Carnegie, units per se. So I would be in favor of it, but I will tell you that it's very difficult to implement for, a laundry list of reasons, which is why I think we see it in private schools, but not necessarily in a traditional public school environment, at least yet. But I think there's such a shift happening. I know even in Ohio, the ODE has started looking into personalized learning and what does that look like and how do we encourage our districts to pursue that. So the conversations are there and they're starting. And, it's my hope that we get to this eventually.
Yeah. And probably you'll probably, and before I go to Jesse, he should see this too, so he can comment. You'll probably leave entirely this model, the traditional model. You won't go entirely to the model I just showed you. You'll play, and you will play by carving it into your traditional model for extracurricular and that kind of stuff. But it will be student centered.
Well,
And then teachers might have to deliver the same point on their lesson sequence several times a year because your cohorts are moving different pace. And then they're always wrapping back to the ones moving slowly, and they're taking your kids and kicking them up to the next grade.
right.
And then the grade is going, wait, but you let's load you up on more extracurricular. You want to learn to do what? Okay, good. So I'm going to slow your pace down to keep you more in your age group, and this would be an option. So by giving you a bunch of other stuff that's totally alternate route, fantastic exploration activities, because you're so far ahead in core, and I'm just going to keep you busy with exciting stuff. Maybe I'm going to give you college credit, right? Like go on with that, right? So that's the kind of stuff, but you can't do that in the existing model because it's batched.
Right.
It's a batched model. And you have to stick with your age group or you're doomed. You're just going to get an F if you're behind your age group, you're doomed.
Right.
Yeah. So Jesse, we did a whole thing on this before, but the question is basically the same. What do you think of this? Because you're building now around a framework for the teachers, but I'm talking about where the future is going in terms of the expectations of the American public to have full personalization. And that will change structure. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything was said. I think how do you actually implement this is the question. So our current this current structure and frameworks of public education need to dramatically change systematically for this to actually happen. So like I mean, yes, this is all great and it makes sense, but I think the next step is if I'm a principal or superintendent, how do I actually make it happen? Like, how do I, if I've been trained in the old way and I got a licensure a long time ago, and this is all brand new to me, where do I start in terms of for transitioning to this model? So I think that is where a lot of districts are going to need help with, like, how do we map out for districts and for superintendents, for leaders? Okay, here's a pathway to make this happen. Because I think it's definitely what people are asking about. But some of the inherent structures and systems in place in public education don't allow it for it to happen systematically. So I think you can, right now we can have pockets of this, like an individual school and principal can implement pockets of it. But I think we have to think about the inherent structures of public education to make it more systematic. So I think I agree with it all. I mean, it makes sense. And I think it makes sense to do. It's the best. If our end user is always students and their families, which it should be, it makes sense for students and families. It's just a matter of how do we redo our structures and frameworks to match that end. And so, I haven't seen a ton of progress that way. I see pockets of it across the country and districts and so forth, but I haven't seen an entire system be able to go like this. I think one of the big reasons why, because it's not just that district, it's just public education in general, the larger system.
Yeah.
Some of the things you got to do, some of the structures in place, some of the laws in place in the books right now are inherently anti this. Like, it's not going to, so I think that's just something to consider. I think we can do pockets of this, but as a whole system, I think the system itself has to structurally change for it to be like fully implemented.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. I think it's the laws that are very concerning. I've had many conversations with superintendents all across the country about how do we do that. Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed that, Jesse. You're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because you look at the way, like, I think part of it too, maybe like a easier win for this model would be to work with colleges and universities, because that's where, our teachers and our principals and leaders go for formalized training and licenses. Like, you have to have a license, you got to have to teach, you got to have a license to be administrator. But you go to colleges and universities, how they prep those folks. You won't see any of this in any licensure program. So I think if you're, one way to affect immediate change, the new group of people who are coming into the system, have them thinking this way instead of having to build them up again. Like, okay, we're going to completely trash what you know and rebuild you. Instead of doing all that, this is what you know. So I think having that conversations with colleges and universities, preparatory programs for teachers and administrators would be helpful to help kind of jumpstart some of the change in the system. Because now your people are entering a system with this mindset already. So now you already have a leg up.
Yeah, and we all know they're all the teaching colleges are running way behind and they're not graduating enough people anyway. Okay, so one other thing, because we only have a couple minutes left, so I'll give you guys like each 1 minute to answer on this point. But we believe as a research institution that this is imminent, right? Like people are going to have to start piloting a change in structure for two reasons. One, they're still losing kids, and it's because of the change in perceptions and expectations. Okay, and two, they can't get the teachers, so they have to restructure to make the moment of teaching an extreme efficiency. So those are the two things that I'm hearing it everywhere. So the question is, to really do personalization well, there's even a level beyond this logistics level, and you've both hinted at it, and that is the identity accrual, all the tags about the individual student. And so there's another level coming of how you create curriculum, use curriculum, the data recommendations engine being pinged against this identity and creating a majestic pile of information about that student. And we ran into this when you were talking about substitutes, Kimberly, because they don't know things, right? And they have to read it all up in 5 seconds or less and then walk in there and teach. So there's something coming, and I would like to hear just, as the last thing, what do you think about that? Like, because it's all harbored now in the mind of your teacher, most of it. But what do you think?
I think that it's going to be, I think systems are going to help us with this. Like, I've been in this game a long time, and I think that we had ways of sharing information, maybe from building to building. Like, we'd have a folder, and when that folder got to the new teacher, you would read through the folder from the previous teachers, or you would look at maybe previous grades or whatever. And now that we do have the technology in place for this, I think there are some systems out there that are going to make this really powerful. We have ours in place, and I'm not saying ours is the best or the worst or whatever, but we just had a meeting yesterday, and we were being shown some of the reporting capabilities that we were going to have, and it's mind blowing because it does let you get a full look at that student, from because it's not all about grades all the time. You know what I mean? So it's not only just about grades, but it's the whole picture of the student, all of the information together in one place. Teachers are not having to pop from here to there because time, to your point earlier, I mean, teachers are overwhelmed. They don't have the time that they would love to be able to put into this sometimes. And so making the information easy for them to retrieve, and then easy for them to implement and use in their own planning, because you're right, you cannot get personal learning with a student unless you know the student. The relationship is the core to all of that. So leveraging technology to be able to accumulate knowledge, from grade level to grade level for teachers to have, I think is going to change the game about how we really begin to work effectively with kids. And then one other thing I just want to add is I forgot I was going to mention this. Mayfield High School in Ohio, they have been the model that you previously showed. They have been kind of doing some interesting work. So with this kind of thing, with letting the kids kind of choose almost modules to move through and break outside of that traditional school day approach. So check out I forget what his name is, but the principal of Mayfield High School, if you get in touch with him, I think you'd be interested to see the work he's been doing.
Good. I wrote it down. I definitely will, because there's a lot of schools doing something. I mean, it feels like we're starting a mutation, and I'm just bringing it up everywhere just to be a bringer-upper. I just bring things up. So cool. So Jesse, what are your thoughts on that whole, like, you can't get there from here without really good identity and accumulation of knowledge about that individual kid?
Yeah, I think to piggyback on what I said about collaboration, I think we're really starting to work on systems and structures in our district right now. I mean, we're a very large district, and our systems haven't always been in place or correctly in place. So now we're spending time. Okay, what is it? How we want to define these systems we're using, and I think that will lead to collaboration between not only teachers but departments. So in a large district, we have departments, and who kind of do their own little thing in their silos, and they don't understand the impacts it might have on students and their families and their own work and how it connects to other departments in the building or in the districts. So now that we have these systems and we have a learning management system, I think the collaboration is going to help between teachers, departments, buildings, grade level bands. It's going to be a great way to kind of collaborate and kind of deepen our understanding of students. So we're not all reinventing the wheel. Like we can kind of work together more cohesively. I think that's going to be a big thing because we haven't really done that before in a cohesive way. And so I think being able to have those systems in place is a starting place. And then how do you leverage the knowledge you gain through collaboration? And so, okay, it's great to collaborate and gain some knowledge, but then how do you leverage that to impact student learning and impact the student experience? And so how do you now take that and implement it in a way and structure it in a way that's best for the students and best for their, best for how they learn and their identities and so forth. And so one of the things we're attempting to do too is we have a portrait of a graduate for our districts. And so we're trying to immediately incorporate these characteristics in our courses as well. So how do we actually blend in those characteristics within all our core content courses? So it's not one more thing. It's really just a seamless kind of approach to teaching and learning. So
I like that. So you guys are thinking about this. And so both of you essentially said, like, you're in a new era of communication and systems. And that's really it's like a step in maturity that's happening everywhere. And it's good to remember where we come from. I mean, we literally came from, like, beyond the front door of that classroom was like that teacher's zone, and don't go in there, right? Like, they will bark at you, and that's their dominion, their little kingdom. And now we're like, yeah, but let's work together, because otherwise you're going to end up doing it all yourself. And if you fall down and we got to stick somebody else in there, we're doomed. And we need to have like a group mentality. So just in a couple years, we've graduated millions of teachers into opening the door. That is huge alone. So let's give ourselves a little point of congratulations just on that, right, Kimberly?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed around the block. It used to be very siloed, and it is not now. So
yeah.
People are willing to share. People didn't share.
I know they didn't. They were like, no, mine.
Right.
I need this. Right. Yeah. Jesse, you're seeing the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think we're beginning that. I think we still have a large number who like, okay, I want this stuff. I don't want to share my content or my knowledge with others. But now that we're trying to be more collaborative, like that's the whole point. We invited teachers to be part of our course building process so they can share their expertise and not just be something that the learning technology department did. Like, we wanted to make sure it was teacher built, and that's where they have more ownership and buy into it as well. And so it's worked out well.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I want to thank you guys and our attendees for being with us. We're going to, of course, launch this out as a recording to the whole country, but mostly Ohio, right, and neighboring states. So thanking No Story and thanking the EduJedi Leadership Society, who are a bunch of just awesome people who contribute amazing thoughts and things that go into everything the Learning Council does. So I want to thank you two guys for being with us again, Jesse, Kimberly, and of course, Dr. Leibody, who's already, he jumped off because he had a meeting. But thank you guys. And we hope to see you again someday. We really want to come there physically and have like an event and a workshop. So, we're looking forward to that too. But I'm going to release you back into the wild, and thank you very much, and continue your awesomeness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Goodbye for now, everyone.